Committee. Do notice the meetings law requirements have been met. Um, Other committee members present tonight, we have Kowski, Rossi, Horth, and Kolb. Myself. County staff present tonight, Riley Bean, Patricia Burnett, Brett Ben Haas, Shannon Kurth, Kim Parsons. Tonight, we have members of the Racine Youth and Governance Program presented who are participating meeting in a non-binary capacity. All right, Keegan Flood, please do not speak unless you're recognized by the chair. Also, please silence your phones. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you. We will now begin the meeting.
Point of order. Mr. Chair. When it comes to the public comment, we also have 13 communications regarding the causeway, the Christopher Columbus Causeway. We just received these communications about within the last hour and a half, so we did not have a chance to distribute them out. So I talked to Corporation Counsel, and one of the options we are allowed to do is one option we can have is we can discuss the amount of opposed and in support of the item. However, also if the committee is wishing for time, we can push this item back to the October 24th before county board. So this is for item regarding number 9.
Okay.
You mean March 24th?
March 24th.
Yes.
Not October. Correct. Apologize.
All right. So that we're clear, the option is to what again? We can either.
An option you have is I can read out the amount of opposed and in support of those letters. However, if the board or if the committee is wishing to read those letters for themselves, we can push this to March 24th. For then you would have a first reading following in county board.
All right. What is the pleasure of the committee?
They read them tonight.
Okay. We will go ahead and proceed with the readings of the.
I'm sorry. I'm saying I'm fine with, personally, I would be fine with just understanding who was opposed and who was against it, because having perused it real quickly here, very similar feedback and comments is being given on both fronts. So I wouldn't see a need to have to force 13 of them being read to us. Just my opinion.
Sure. Okay. So then before the public comment, I can just go in and there's 13 communications, 5 opposed, 8 are in support. And then we can proceed with item number 4.
All right. Thank you. Item number 4, public comments limited to 3 minutes per speaker on any topic, limited to 6 minutes total. Individuals wishing to provide comment are encouraged to do so via email prior to 4 p.m. Thursday, March 12th, in the following to the following address. Do we have any public, those wish to speak publicly? If you'd like to speak, come up, state your address, name and address before you speak.
Hi, my name's Becky Marston. I live at 214 William Street in Racine. And I am here to speak to extending the name of the causeway, Kippy Cowway, in honor of Indigenous people. And it serves to acknowledge the rich culture and heritage that the Indians have brought to our community. Right now, the causeway is split in half with the city who had changed the name to Kippy Cowway, but the county did not proceed to extend that all the way down the causeway. So I propose that definitely consider extending that name. I think that would be great for the entire county. We have Indigenous people who have been present here, east and west of the I, and I think it would be a great thing. Now, I know that in the past, when this has come up, that some of the businesses, I believe, were concerned about changing their name and all their letterheads and their communication. So I would propose actually that we don't, that it's passed, but it's passed to a future date. So that say in October during the Indigenous Month recognition, that perhaps that would be a good time. That would be the deadline for that change to happen. And that would allow the businesses to kind of get all their correspondence up to date. And I think that would be great. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Diane Lang. My address is 2908 Ruby Avenue. Just wanted to thank all of you for your public service. I spent 14 years on the county board and part of it was on this committee, so you do good work. I'm speaking tonight as a direct descendant of a white settler farming family in Wisconsin. My great-grandfather was the son and firstborn in Neenah, Wisconsin. And the reason that they came here is they were the beneficiaries of the land grants that were being made to settlers after the removal of the Winnebago people off of their lands in the Neenah area. My grandfather recalls his great-grandfather telling him that they would not have survived that first year if the Native people had not taught them survival tactics. On my father's side of the family, we have a small cottage along the Oconto River up north. And that is also land grant from Native people, the Menominees being forcibly moved from that land. So I'm saying as a white settler family descendant that my family has certainly benefited in ways. And that makes me very appreciative of the fact that we need to restore some sense of history and appreciation for the Native people who took such good care of this land. And I strongly support this resolution because, again, it does honor people that resided here for so many years, and that have many stories of endurance, adaptation, resilience, endurance, things that right now with the tangled roots of our society, the Kipikawi name was named after the tangled roots of the Root River. So I think that there's some really good ways that we can honor by this change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts about this issue, changing Christopher Columbus Causeway to Kipikawi Causeway. I speak also for myself and the Racine Dominican Laudato Si Action Team. We endorse the name change of that one small part that Racine County controls its name. We would like Racine County to honor the indigenous people who lived here on this land before us and to acknowledge the injustices that Diane shared so well about us taking the land from the Native people. So we can acknowledge that injustice that was done, but when the Europeans came over and settled in this land. As you're aware, there are many Wisconsin cities and towns named after indigenous names: Milwaukee, Oshkosh, Waukesha, Oconomowoc, Waunakee, just to name a few. It would be so appropriate if Racine could use Kipikawi, the original Potawatomi name for Root River that runs through our city and county, as a name for the causeway that we're discussing. The name is more fitting, much more fitting, than a street named after Christopher Columbus, who never set foot in Wisconsin, and whose legacy to America was brutality and betrayal of the Native peoples. Several businesses that we've heard have expressed concerns about the renaming because of the address change. But you could look at the change as an opportunity for a creative marketing and promoting the business in a new way, attracting new customers and clients. Through the years and for various reasons, other individuals and businesses have had to change addresses, even though they are still located in the same place. So they were able to do it without too much difficulty. So I and the other members of the Laudato Si Action Team ask you to support the name change from Christopher Columbus to the Kipikawi Causeway. Thank you.
Your name, ma'am?
Oh, I'm Janet Weicker, 3416 North Wisconsin Street, Racine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary McElvain from 1022 Villa Street in Racine. I thank you for listening to our comments. Many streets in Port Gilbert, otherwise known as Racine, have had different names over history. You might not recognize a lot of them. Barnstable Street, which is now College, Chippewa Street, Park Avenue, Canada Street, St. Patrick. And I'm old enough to remember Lafayette Avenue, which is part of Memorial Drive, and Milwaukee Avenue, which is another part of Memorial Drive. These different changes were made over time and affected many more businesses likely than we're talking about in this situation here. I would also like to comment on the opposition to this proposed name change. I'm old. I remember in the early 80s when there was a very vocal group of opponents to the construction of our marina. Think back over 40 years of what Racine would be like without that marina because people objected to the cost of it. I think we have to have a better vision. I have a hard time imagining what Racine would be like today without that marina that we have had for these decades. And I think it has generally agreed has benefited us. Just back to Native American people and the reason for considering them in a name. Their residence in this area predates ours by thousands of years. I speak as a descendant of Europeans. The Potawatomi are one of these nations, and the history represented by them overshadows the history represented by us by hundreds and thousands of years. It seems like we should just have a little reflection of that in our local naming. A final comment, when I travel, it's really a challenge for me to figure out which road I'm on when I'm at an intersection and there's a street going one way with one name and it looks like it should be the same street going the other way and it's a different name. It would be nice to have that continuity. And I do support the resolution. I hope you will too. I know change can be inconvenient and involve expense, but things do change and we can recognize opportunity along with way to positively recognize our heritage. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Mason, 4403 Happy Hollow Lane in Mount Pleasant. Thank you, everybody. So I am here tonight as a citizen of Racine County and as a member of Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church. Here to hope that you will pass Resolution 2025-85, which will rename Christopher Columbus Causeway to Kipikawi Causeway. When we have meetings at church, we often start with a land acknowledgement because we want to acknowledge that the ancestral lands that we are all on. Passage of Resolution 2025-85 is one way to honor the many contributions that Indigenous people have made to our lives. Kipikawi, the Potawatomi name for Red River, is a part of the history of Racine and should be honored as such. When you drive down what is now Christopher Columbus Causeway, you see two statues, one of Christopher Columbus and one of the firekeeper, donated to Racine by the Potawatomi Nation. The two statues stand in stark contrast to each other. Christopher Columbus was a conqueror whose destruction of indigenous peoples and their way of life is his lasting legacy. His goal was to conquer land for his benefactors. The impact of his travels is a destruction of the culture and heritage of those who got in his way. His treatment of indigenous peoples was but the first of many atrocities committed over the course of our history against indigenous peoples. The United States government negotiated 370 treaties with various tribes, almost all of which has been broken by our government. Passing Resolution 2025-85 gives us as a community an opportunity to repair the harm caused by these atrocities. In direct contrast to Columbus, firekeepers in the Potawatomi tradition are individuals honored with the spiritual and practical responsibility of maintaining sacred fires for ceremonies, community gatherings, and historically as keepers of cultural knowledge. They ensure the fire's energy remains strong, protecting the community and upholding traditions. The Potawatomi are people of the fire. The ceremonial role of the fire keepers is to manage sacred fires, acting as a link between the physical and spiritual worlds. The cultural significance of the fire keepers symbolizes the protection of heritage. Historically, fire keepers act as thermal engineers managing communal fires for warmth, cooking, and storytelling, which fosters community cohesion. Firekeepers even promote land management as they utilize cultural burning to manage ecosystems, reduce wildfire risk, and promise biodiversity. Okay, our local Racine County heritage is more closely linked to the keeper of the fire than to Columbus. In fact, the name of the Park High School yearbook is Kipikawi, dating back to the 1920s, more than 100 years ago. They knew that the Kipikawi were an important part of our local history. Even back then, we identified with the historical roots of the Potawatomi Nation, rather, than the myth of Columbus. And as a gift to you, I have copied off some pictures passed around of the Kipikawi yearbook. There's one from each decade, starting in 1920. And so I appreciate if you honoring this part of our history. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Roy Peterson, 4800 Long Meadow Lane, Racine, Wisconsin. I'm here on behalf of my business, Reef Point Brew House, which is located at 2 Christopher Columbus Causeway. I'd like to start by thanking everyone that's spoken before me and enlightening me on the rich history of what this name change means to you all. And I agree it is something that's important, but at the end of the day, it is my wife and I who are going to be the ones switching everything because we are privately owned and manage a staff of over 120 people. So given a deadline for the end of October that was suggested does not fall in line with our season and what we need to do. I'd also like to point out that the land that the street is on was backfilled in the 80s, so it was not land taken from anyone. I'd also like to point out that when this street name change was first proposed about 5 years ago, we were approached with letters and people coming into our establishment threatening that if we did not support this, our building should be burnt to the ground, which is not something I believe the Fire Nation would stand for. That's all I have to say, other than I do not have any opposition against the name. Okay? It's not the name. It's the time it takes to change it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Father Yeprem Collegian, Pastor Emeritus, that means old priest, St. Matthew Armenian Church. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Racine Interfaith Coalition Education Task Force. We're in favor of the change of the name of the causeway to Kipikawi Causeway. As you've heard, boy, you've heard a lot, and you're sitting there probably very bored by this point. You've heard the original name was given by the Potawatomi. And I like that the concept of how old that is. My people, Armenian origin, we only go back 3,000 years. The Potawatomi were here long, long, long before that. There's something sacred, something holy about the land we live on, that we usurp, yeah, but there's still something holy underneath it all. And so even when the French fur traders came through, they kept the name of roots, Racino. They had that respect for history. So as a student of history myself, let's keep that history going here. We live on land that was given to us, and it's a sacred legacy. So we are in favor of the change of the causeways name to Kipikawi. Thank you. And that's 35 Harbor View, Racine, Wisconsin, downtown. Well,
Thank you.
Hi, Jessica McPhail, 3703, and I have Rio Vista. I did fill out the form. Jessica McPhail. I'm here to read a statement from a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. He says, "My name is James Kelly, member ID number," and I'm not going to say it, but he's written it. He grew up in Racine. I'm a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. The renaming of this street will help with an injustice of what was taken and the remembrance of what this name brought. I would like to see it change to help our healing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Rosalinda Salinas Holtman. I am representing not only myself, but Coming Together Racine. And we gather every 24th of October. The people who walked this land before Racine was even thought of should be honored. Why would the name and statue of an oppressor, abuser, and killer of the First Nations remain? Why should those of us who bear the history of abuse be reminded? And thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Valencia, 3919 Ruby Avenue, District 10. I will also be speaking in support of the resolution proposing the name change of this small portion of the remainder of Christopher Columbus Causeway. This causeway leads to our beautiful lakefront, and to rename it this small piece to Kipikawi Causeway would honor the original racing habitats, the Potawatomi Nation, which makes sense. Kipikawi means root river in the indigenous language. As we find ways to restore, protect, and preserve culture, it's time to recognize the rich heritage of our Native Americans. So let's finish the project we started so long ago. This year, when we're celebrating our 250th American birthday, it's time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Flood. I live at 1431 Dean Boulevard in Racine. I moved back 7 years ago after leaving when I was 18, but I was born here and I grew up here. When I found out that Kipikawi refers to the roots or the rooted river, and that indeed the river was named after the Native American reference to the river, and that even the town Racine then is Racine is French for root. So as others have stated, we have a deep connection to Kipikawi, and that was the original designation for this area. So I'm just want to be one more person who speaks in favor of changing the name. Thank you.
Thank you.
To chairman and committee board members, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to present this change to you. My name is Michael D. Shields, 1850 13th Street, Racine County. My concern is that I am a co-chair of Coming Together, which initiated this whole thing, and the name change and everything some years ago. And all we're asking you to do, and my job is easy because everything you heard, I don't have to repeat. But I hope that you find it in your heart to make a change so we can start eliminating some of the practices that we had in the past. So it's up to you. And I understand you might have a change of mind, but now since Racine County and Racine have been ranked #2 as far as discrimination, this is one step that we can take forward to make a change. And I hope that you will do the right thing, and God bless all of you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else for
Mr. Chair.
public comment? Yes.
Supervisor Spencer meant to be here tonight, but her mother was in the emergency room this afternoon. She gave me a letter that she would like to read. Should I save that for our discussion later, or should I read it now?
She did bring that to my attention as well. She had a family emergency. I would like to allow that, if that is okay. Or do we? Yes.
So you can see that passing this resolution on to the full board is very important to many members of our community. In my opinion, with the 33 million in renovations happening, this is an ideal time for the street name update as well. I'm sure that a tiny street with 2 names will be less confusing than 3 or 4 local people, and especially tourists. I think that the meaningful and catchy name will be a draw for businesses, not a drawback. I am pro-business and don't want to reduce anyone's jobs, but this won't be an immediate process. It can be done with smaller adjustments and parenthesized wording, formerly Christopher Columbus Causeway, until required business changes are in place. This change was expected by both businesses to come forward again. I asked for cost expectations and was told that they are variables. Timing is a variable too. Since the city passed their portion of the street name to Kipikawi Causeway in September of 2019, there has been talk that the county could approve their larger portion of the same street to also honor our indigenous history. I have heard from people in support of this since then and until now. Many of our constituents are members of a federally organized nation. Many, many more have indigenous ancestors. Many individuals and organizations support honoring the first caretakers of the land that is along Root River and all over Racine County. The cost to the county would already be in the budget from public work funds that include signage. She also included a front page from a Potawatomi newsletter regarding the firekeeper statue that I'll pass to the other board members. History of this effort to change the street name is unique, so I'll review with you. Discussion of this name change has been in the Public Works meeting minutes, but a resolution has not been presented until now. It was first on the agenda as a discussion only a few months after the city changed their portion in January 2020. It was next discussed during the COVID shutdown in April of 2021, and discussion was tabled until after the pandemic. In December of 2022, it was put on the Public Works Committee agenda again. A motion was made to send a recommendation to the county board to change the name of the causeway to Kipikaway effective in 2024. The minutes from that meeting state that the motion carried unanimously and that the vote was 2-3 with 3 dissenting votes. I attended that meeting and witnessed that the motion and vote taking were confusing. No resolution was ever drafted. One of the ongoing concerns that I've heard from various board members is whether tribal nations are in support of this change. I have a letter from 2021 from Oneida Nation leaders that states, the Oneida Nation supports the efforts of the Potawatomi Nation and their supporters to rename the Christopher Columbus Causeway to Kipikaway Causeway. It goes further to state that the Oneida Nation encourages the Racine County Board to rename the causeway to recognize the indigenous people that lived upon and took care of the lands for time immemorial. I have a newsletter from the Potawatomi Times that has a full page dedicated to the Firekeeper statue dedication on October 24th, 2024. Tribal leadership has changed and some indigenous friends in our community have passed away over the years since these discussions started. Invention City, the Sesquicentennial History of Racine, Wisconsin, Chapter 1, is where much of my historical information came from. It refers to at least 10 of Racine County's municipalities and several local lakes, rivers, and creeks. I'd be happy to share it with you all via email since it is 15 pages. Though not the only resource I use for writing this resolution, I would be happy to forward this interesting documented history of the county to the entire board if requested. From my standpoint as a county board supervisor with deep concerns for our businesses, jobs, and tourism, I believe that changing the street name will actually improve the draw to the area due to its uniqueness, history, and presence of permanent firekeeping statue. The confusion will be reduced because this street will have one less name. After proper notification from Racine County, GPS apps will pick up the new street name since it will be more viable than the tiny portion that Kipikaway Causeway was, and with no buildings and therefore no addresses to pick up. The revitalization of the marina will be stunning. In my opinion, this is an ideal time to address the street name change to coincide with the revamped lakefront tourism attraction. This topic has continued to come up from people in the community. You can see by the people who are in attendance that it is important to them. There are several local organizations and individuals who want to see the street name changed to honor the indigenous history of Racine County. This is why I created this, the first actual resolution presented on the matter, and asked this committee to move this forward to the full board for discussion and a vote on March 24th. Thank you.
Thank you for reading that statement. Any other public comments or, well, any other public comments? Going once, twice. All right, item 5. Review, discussion, and possible action on a resolution strongly urging the governor of Wisconsin and the state legislature to enact a comprehensive, sustainable transportation funding solution. This is a requested reading, first reading on Tuesday, March 24th.
Yes, Chairman Hopkins, we actually have Chairman Kramer who's sponsoring this resolution for a sustainable transportation resolution, and I'm going to let you take over.
Thank you, Director Bean. So this resolution comes from the county's association. And prior to that, it's being developed by the Transportation Development Association. It's short for TDA. Myself, Director Bean, are members of this organization, along with numerous towns, cities and villages, counties, our associations, and road builders. Their prime purpose is to maintain and establish funding. For the last 6 years, we've been doing a pretty good job. As we all know, the counties and towns and cities are all facing shortfalls. And also the state's going to be. So what this resolution asks for is that the state legislature maintains the funding level, at least the current levels. We're all going to get local road improvement money. That's guaranteed. That's in the statute. We're going to get some discretionary money if we qualify for and score high enough on the applications. But what we're really concerned about is the supplemental funds that the state legislature every biennium has to approve, and also the supplemental funds. And also, we don't want to lose any money in the discretionary funds because that's where they're going to take it from. The TDA also works at the federal level. And that right now we're working on getting the reauthorization of the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure bill law. So that is taking a back seat in Washington right now. And a lot of our funding comes from that through the state down to us. So I'd like you to support this because it's imperative that when our lobbyists from all our organizations go into Madison, they have a binder and they can walk into a state senator's office or a representative's office and say, we have 100% support from all the counties and all the towns and all the villages and cities in your district. Any questions?
Yes.
So when I first looked at this, I saw sustainable transportation, and I'm just curious, there's no mention of anything other than road building. Is there?
So with the TDA, I mean, we're primarily, roads, but when it comes into the TDA's function across the board, I've been to meetings where we've talked about bike paths, large culverts, 6 foot in diameter or bigger. We've also talked about icebreakers to the federal for Lake Michigan. So it encompasses all types of transportation, public transportation, roads, harbors, airports. So it's right now we're concerned, the TDA is concerned about the funding for roads. So, but they have a vast, we have members from all over with the cities and airports and harbors. So any further questions?
Any other questions or comments?
Chairman, I move to send this to the county board for first reading on March 24th.
So it's been motioned and it's been seconded. Any other conversations that relates to the current resolution? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Youth and governance, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And no one's here to oppose. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All righty, I am going to temporarily backtrack here and call for some items here. So review and possible approval of the draft summary minutes from the January 8th, 2026 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Youth and governance, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
No one here to oppose. And then again, small matter of business. Review and possible approval of the draft summary minutes from the February 10th, 2026 meeting.
Motion to approve is submitted.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded. Go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Youth and Governance, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item here, review, discussion, and possible action and resolution authorizing the decommission of a trail known as the 100-Mile Trail. This is scheduled for first reading at the County Board meeting March 24th, 2026.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is the discontinue and the designation of the 100-mile trail that we have in Racine County. This was voted for by the Public Works Committee in the 1970s. Ben Haas did a lot of the legwork on some of this. I'm going to let him take over right now.
Good, thank you. The 100-mile bike route was established in the early 1970s, like you mentioned. It was designed as an on-road trail that went around the circle of Racine County, highlighting the rural roads and scenic areas. Since then, Racine County and local municipalities have developed numerous dedicated off-road, bicycle, and pedestrian trails, creating a much larger and safer trail network. Over the last 50 years, traffic volumes have increased, vehicle speeds are higher, roadways have changed function, semis to larger trucks, and they lack shoulders. As a result, sections that were once safe for bicycling are no longer appropriate for a designated county bike route and do not meet modern bicycle facility standards. If you have any questions.
Yes.
Yes, 100-mile trail, it's been in effect for 50 years. One question is, why now? Why are we looking to decommission this today?
One of the reasons is that people, their expectations of a safe route, they're calling us and saying, this doesn't look like a safe route to us. And we have a hard time making an argument that it is. It was probably ideal in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but modern standards have, as you know, with the W situation, they're looking for 6-foot paths off the side of the roads. So standards have changed, the traffic patterns have changed. And so their expectations we can't provide them a safe, or we wouldn't suggest that they take that route when we have bike trails to take.
Second question is, does this trail present any liability concerns for the county at all?
Under this, we are under recreational immunity as far as liability goes, but I think as Ben's saying, it's still the motion of are we going to recommend this as a bike trail? Now, certainly, we're not going to stop people from using any road that they want, that they wish to ride a bike on. They can certainly still do that. But for us to say this is the way to take if you want to do for a recreational ride, I would no longer suggest that anymore.
Is there any cost associated with decommissioning the 100-mile trail?
It's a resolution and taking down signs.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any further discussion or comment on the resolution? Keegan.
So the present concern is mainly one of safety then. I just want to be clear about that.
Correct. It's a safety issue. With this high volume of traffic on roads that are much narrower than they should be so every road has a design speed on it. And the design speed is for the speed of that and the amount of traffic that are on these roads. Now the traffic increases and cars are still going at design speed. And now we have, basically a bike trail in a 50-mile-an-hour area where there's triple the amount of vehicles on there. And so that's what this comes down to.
That seems completely fair. Thank you.
Any other comment or questions? Yes.
Chair, move to send this to the county board for first reading on March 24th.
Can I get a second? All right, it's been motioned and seconded. Any other discussions or questions regarding the current resolution? All right, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Youth and Governance, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7, review, discussion, and possible action on a request by the Village of Raymond to hang light pole banners at 7 Mile, County Trunk Highway U and County Trunk Highway G, C, County Trunk Highway U. And this is for approval by the committee only.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this has to do with the town of Raymond is requesting to put some banners up in some intersections that we have. It's against Public Works policy and ordinances to do in such way. However, by going to the committee, you guys can certainly grant that permission. Shannon Kurth is here. She did some of the questions with Raymond. Am I correct on that? And the president of Raymond is here. I guess you can talk about the subject as well.
So we're initiating what's called a Hometown Heroes program.
Talk on the mic, please.
Yeah, we're initiating a Hometown Heroes program, noting it's the 250th anniversary of the country. And what's involved in this program is it's set up to honor military veterans. And you have a picture, all of you should have a picture of what the banners look like. So what happens is we're in the process of advertising to residents that if they want to purchase a banner to honor somebody in their family that has some association with the Village of Raymond, the banners cost about $100 and the village will buy the brackets. The problem we have is most of our roads are 50 miles an hour. And these banners are either 2 foot by 3 foot or 30 inches by 60 inches. And it typically, as you can see, has a picture of their service photo and their year served in the military branch they served in. At 50 miles an hour, you're not gonna be able to read that very well. So we got to thinking, what was the best place to put these? And you have to slow down to go through those circles. And those circles were just put in. There's 12 poles at each circle, so we could support up to 50 banners. We don't know how many banners we're gonna get. Our plan is right now to hang them between Labor Day Memorial Day and Labor Day. We may go to Veterans Day, depending on what's going on, and we'll take them down for the winter. But we just feel this is the best place in our village to hang them. We don't actually really have a good alternative. So we would put them up, we would maintain them. You guys wouldn't have to do anything. We're just looking for permission to hang these banners for 4 to 6 months out of the year. And if you're so inclined, you can come to our 4th Fest on July 3rd, where we're going to celebrate each person that has a banner hanging up, and we're kind of making a big deal out of it. So that's the request.
All right, any questions or comments on the current resolution?
I guess this would be for Shannon. Is there anything as far as like with the state or anything in a roundabout, what can be signed and what can't be signed?
So I have a call into the state on getting information on it. I've talked to the town of Waterford. I've talked to the city of Milwaukee and city of Racine. They all have permits that they ask. They have special brackets that they require for each of the flags to be hung on. And if there's any damage to the pole, it is the person who places them on there that are responsible for any damage to the pole and replacement of the pole. There are 2 poles that are on the UNG roundabout that are owned by We Energies, so they would not be allowed to put them on those 2 poles because they are not ours. Just want to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if I didn't just say thank you for finding a way to recognize our service individuals. Thank you.
In all honesty, this is a very big program in Pennsylvania. Every little town has their hometown heroes, and I do think Cedarburg has a similar program. But yeah, we're expecting to have a lot of fast followers.
Yes.
Chairman, I move we approve the request with the stipulation that all additional requirements of the highway department are followed.
Second.
Okay, again, it's been motioned and seconded. Any other conversations, discussion on the current motion? I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Youth and Governance, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, no one opposed, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Review discussion is possible action on an appeal to allow an unpermitted highway access point on County Truck Highway H by Bill and Shirley Nelson. This is committee approval only.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is the highway access point owned by Bill and Shirley Nelson. They are appealing it. Their engineering staff has denied their permit to keep the driveway in there. It was originally installed unpermitted, and I'm going to let Shannon Kurth, who denied the permit, I guess, get through the reasons why and state your case there.
Joe denied the permit. I'm here to represent Joe. The reason why the permit was denied was that in 1970, there was a easement passed for a shared access point for the 3 parcels that are on the southern portion of this parcel. And that would be the reason why it was denied. The placement of it is not in a proper location that the county would approve otherwise as well.
All right, any question or comments on the current resolution?
This is in my district. I did talk to Mr. Nelson, and then I did meet with Raleigh and Joe. And then following up after Raleigh and Joe, because I was trying to figure out what got mixed up of how he put the culvert in the wrong spot. I did then talk to Ryan Schmidt at Caledonia to see where our communication is off between Caledonia and the county. And Ryan did send me all the paperwork, and it does say contact county for placement of culvert. And his name is signed like right under it, and it is highlighted. So I don't know why they put it there, but I mean, the paperwork does say from Caledonia to contact the county did. So like I say, I have talked to him, and he is kind of leaning towards using the shared access that he was supposed to begin with, but yeah, I don't know where the mix up was, but I was kind of worried about a mix up between Caledonia and the county, if this is gonna be a repetitive thing, or if this is just a one-off, but it does seem like it's just a one-off thing.
I did reach out to the village as well, just to make sure that their paths were taken to make sure that they did reach out to the county for any highway access permits that were for a county trunk highway, that they made sure that they were asking their homeowners to get new permits from us as well. I know even if you have an existing access point and you redevelop that property, you are still responsible to get a highway access permit from the county. And I don't think everybody knows that, and I don't know that all the villages share that.
What are considerations in terms of not permitting this access point? What are the concerns?
What do you mean?
So this is appeal to allow an unpermitted highway access point.
They would like to keep the access point that we're denying, correct?
Right. Is there any safety concerns or issues around that point being there?
Yes. So the reason why the shared access point was taken in the beginning was because of the close proximity to the driveways and the, I believe, intersections. So there is a driveway that is directly across the street that is too close to the unpermitted access point that would not allow for a safe transition between vehicles if they had to stop for both sides. And per the policy for the county for that classification of roadway, they need 300 feet between those access points.
Right. So currently, as it stands, that access point is in violation of those concerns, those safety concerns.
Correct.
Any questions or further conversation on this?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, my apologies, I think I'm confused. Was this denied by this committee previously?
No, they put in the access point without getting permission at all.
Okay, so, uh, um, thank you. That's all I needed to hear right now.
Okay.
Yes, Russ.
I believe I'm confused as well. I'm trying to understand how there was some paperwork that Supervisor Cole was indicating there was some sort of a signature approval on. So if you could help me understand that.
So when he went and got his building permit from Caledonia, it says in that permit package for the land disturbance and everything, you must contact Racine County to get a permit for the driveway access. He did not get a permit from the county and just put a driveway where he wanted it. But because the speed limit's 55 miles an hour going through there, you have to have 300 feet between the driveways. Because if we allow too many driveways too close, we're gonna eventually end up where we're gonna have to put a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on a county highway. Because you're gonna have too many accesses within, your distance. So he was supposed to, according to Ryan Schmidt at Caledonia, when he bought that parcel, it was in there that you had to share the driveway with the property to the south. So I don't know if he was trying to skirt it or if it was just accidental, but there was an old driveway where people used to go back and use that as a shooting range. It wasn't that, so they did kind of just improve an existing one, which wasn't supposed to be there. So there's a lot of sketchy in it.
Can I close it up with then, in previous issues, I have, moved to, approve the request for, variance essentially, but I don't see any extenuating circumstances on this one. Would you agree? All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just out of curiosity, what is the resolution on the part of the owner in this situation? Just to either apply for appeal it or reconstruct the whole area?
So they were given the option to have a temporary construction access so that they could get their equipment off of the property until the end of March, so that they weren't destroying or disturbing the shared access point. But the unpermitted access point needs to be removed at the end of March. That's the resolution.
All right, any other further conversation or discussion on the current resolution to allow an unpermitted highway access point at said location?
Chairman, I move to deny the request for appeal.
Second.
Okay, so this appeal has been denied and seconded. Any other discussion on the current resolution? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Youth and Governance, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Denial passes. Review, discussion, and possible recommendation regarding the renaming of a portion of Christopher Columbus Causeway to Kippy Causeway in the city of Racine.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is originally sponsored by Jody Spencer. She is unfortunately not here. She's ill, or her mom is ill, I believe, in the hospital.
Excuse me if I may interrupt real quick, Chair. May I request a 5-minute recess? I apparently had too much coffee earlier today. Before we get into this, I would it'd be great if I could get a 5-minute recess. Don't want to interrupt anything during the meeting.
Can I permit that? Granted.
All right, thank you.
So as soon as I read it, I'm gonna stand it over to Tom, so he's gonna introduce the bill. I'll do the reading, just give a brief abbreviation of it. Tom will introduce the bill. When Tom gets done talking, everyone can have a discussion, and then when someone decides to either, motion, you can say, I'd like a motion, or is there a motion? And then someone might motion.
You don't want me to read the resolution?
No, I'll do it. I'll just let you discuss, like, maybe if there's some background, the reason why Jody decided to go this route.
So,
All right, we're gonna go ahead and call this session back into motion. Back into, we're back live, we're back in session. Break over. I'm just gonna go ahead and just reiterate this resolution. Again, review, discussion, and possible recommendation regarding the renaming of a portion of the Christopher Columbus Causeway to Kippy Causeway in the city of Racine.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this resolution was originally sponsored by Jody Spencer. Unfortunately, she's not here. I believe her mom is in the hospital, so I'm gonna let Tom Murkowski introduce this bill for her. And this is about 1,500 feet of the currently Christopher Columbus Causeway that goes past Reef Point Brew House and the Reef Point Marina. And I'm gonna let Tom take it away.
sure. So as I mentioned in the letter that Jody had written, this has a long history. It was proposed to this committee 2 years ago, I believe. And the remaining time has given, allows for businesses to change and so on. So Jody's worked hard on this. She feels that it's confusing right now to have three separate names for a short segment of street. As you've heard, many people feel that this is an appropriate acknowledgement of people who've lived here for hundreds of years. I would also say that I don't get many letters from constituents, but have gotten two, and I thank you all for showing up. This is the most people we've ever had at a public works meeting in the time that I've been here. And I would also just say that I'm understand the concerns of the business, but in all the time that I've eaten at restaurants, I've never chosen one on the basis of the name. I feel that there's been ample time and that the changes can also be done in a gradual transition. So I feel that the time is right for this to pass.
Thank you, Supervisor. Open for discussion or questions? Yes, go ahead.
I do have some concerns. I'm not happy that when we have people that are our tenants that we rent to are here saying they don't want this change because it's going to affect their business. They have people that bring in food. They have new delivery people. They have things that keep changing. That this, what does Reefport, what is the county going to put skin in the game if we want to do this change? That they don't get a food delivery. They don't have food for their customers. They have to close today. Are we going to be willing to pay for that inconvenience? I also have a email, or I did get an email, and I kind of thought all the board members got it, but apparently it didn't. And I asked the gentleman to come tonight, and I was kind of disappointed he didn't. But he brought up what happens in 10 or 15 years when the Potawatomi Nation or somebody gets offended by the Potawatomi Nation having gambling in Milwaukee, or they change their betting habits or something where people take offense to it, that all of a sudden we're changing this name again because somebody took offense to the Potawatomi Nation. He said, we're in a community now where we do find people are taking offense to a lot very quickly sometimes. When I grew up, Christopher Columbus was just the guy that sailed over here, found America, and we celebrated. You know, I'm old, but not quite that old. But I mean, things change in 10 or 15 years. So are we going to possibly make the same owner of Reef Port Marina go through this again and again because somebody took offense to a name? I said, if people don't like the Christopher Columbus name, if you wanted to change it to Marina Drive or Reef Port Marina or something to that, I'd be fine with that. But after I kind of got the email on people finding something to be offended by the Potawatomi Nation and the gambling part of it, I kind of do see it. But on the other side, I'm not saying I'm going to vote no. I'm kind of still undecided because I do feel that this is a whole board issue, especially when I see other members of the county board here.
Thank you for your, yes, discussion.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. And I have done an enormous amount of homework on this topic because I knew it was going to be a very sensitive one. In fact, as recently as today, I went down and drove it. I wanted to see for myself what it looked like. Admittedly, I wasn't familiar with the signage that's there. I wasn't familiar with exactly how it presented to the public. And candidly speaking, I was disappointed in what I saw regarding signage to begin with. I will tell you that at 4th Avenue and the beginning of the causeway, there's a little sign here with the indigenous name on it, stuck up on the top of a pole. It says that causeway. Then I went looking for Christopher Columbus, and I had to drive halfway down the causeway to find a sign that says Christopher Columbus Causeway. I was across from Reef Point Brew House. And so I may have missed one. It's very possible. But to me, the aspect of it confusing people, I don't see that as being a game starter at all. Because to me, you drive off 4th Avenue, you're driving down onto the causeway, and you're going to get to where you're going. I'm very sensitive about businesses and the impact that'll have to them. Extremely sensitive about it because it's easy to say that people will find it or easy to say that people will change their GPS. But the reality is, it doesn't always happen that way, and there's costs associated with it. Next item. I have a question, and Raleigh, maybe you can answer this. Is the land that we're talking about here to change, is this considered sovereign land? Is this a part of the Native American nation? Because many of the casinos they operate obviously are, and that's one of the reasons they were able to do it until states went ahead and determined that they could go ahead and do it off of sovereign land. So do we know, is this land considered sovereign land or not?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know the causeway itself we made. Actually, I believe the city actually made it.
Right.
Back in the.
So
the causeway,
So-
the county
so
built the
it-
causeway.
Yeah, back in they actually put boring back.
So it's really, it's not sovereign land. It's going to be, it is county owned property then.
It's county owned property.
Okay. And I'm sorry, one or two more if I may. When did it get named Christopher Columbus Causeway? Excuse me.
Tom, you want to get a mic? He helped build it.
No. But my boss.
At the time. It later became Gene Jacobson. So we've had discussions on how it was named. And she doesn't recall. It was she was a county board member like we were. And there was quite contention about building it, period, because of the cost. And, you know, when you're in the western part of the county, why do we need it? And you know, all the arguments you have on something like that, that we've all heard on different things. And they decided that, you know, for the city of Racine, you know, that's something that needed. And as somebody mentioned, what would Racine be like downtown if we didn't have that? Because it brings people in.
Right.
It, you know, the restaurant's great, the marina's getting rehabbed. The lakefront, it puts, you know, it does something for the lakefronts, but there's no, you know, I kind of said, well, was it, you know, Italian Americans? Was it the Knights of Columbus from the Catholic Church? And she didn't know, because again, she was just a county board supervisor at the time, and it was a higher level decision than that. So.
Your question again was when?
My question is, how and when did it get named Christopher Columbus Causeway?
Well, according to the resolution, it was September 30th, 2019.
No, we had a.
Oh, we're just saying Columbus. Oh, okay.
Christopher Columbus was the
my
original name.
apologies.
That was the first time the Public Works Committee sat on, heard that, because I was actually on Public Works at that time. And then again, how Jody referred it, you know, we had it during COVID, and then once COVID was over, where people could go to restaurants and things like that, that's when we took it up last time. And this is, again, no, this is, you know, at the committee level discussion. So this is the first resolution, like she put it, that it's, you know, in front of the committee to go to the county board if it's approved.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments or yes?
So I'm going to warn you that I have a few notes initially. First, I'd like to address the email that Supervisor Cole mentioned. The argument presented in the email, it ruminated with me, because in school I've been taking something called a critical thinking class, and the argument presented reminded me of something called the slippery slope fallacy. Essentially, what it argued was that, people might take offense to a street being named after a Native American name, and that we might, you know, come back here in 10, 15 years and have to rename it. Well, currently there's no real disdain or movement to imply that, and it's a complete hypothetical with no real possible concerns, and that's what's called the slippery slope. It's essentially making the argument that by making one change, it will sort of cascade to the worst possible effect. In this case, us coming to well, not me, of course, but certain supervisors having to come back here in 15 years and having to discuss a whole new name change. So I just wanted to point out that I found that argument personally decently flawed. I would also like to address the comment from Representative Horov on that the land is not sovereign. While the land isn't sovereign necessarily, it does not take away from the fact that historically these indigenous peoples lived on this land. They inhabited this land. And while it may not belong to them in the current day, that does not take away from the history of it. And even if you don't necessarily align with the philosophy that we should be making amends with our past, I personally find one of the more compelling arguments that doesn't have to do with the more pathos aspect of this is, why is there two names for the same street? Frankly, the more popular name and the more, frankly, unique name for the street would be Kipikawi. And if businesses are given ample time, I don't want to come out against businesses, of course. But if businesses are given ample time, I fail to see the real concern they have. I don't really see how it could lead to food shortages, though I might just be idealistic and mistaken in that. And one final comment I have to say is that Christopher Columbus never stepped foot in Wisconsin. If we truly wanted to honor America's colonial history in that aspect, we would have named the street and given a statue to a French explorer, someone who actually stepped foot and had an impact on the land of Wisconsin. Christopher Columbus never even knew Wisconsin existed. He landed in Hispaniola and kicked off the age of discovery or the age of colonialism. That's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Keegan. Any other comments or discussion?
Yeah, I was going to just, the reason I asked the question about when it was named or given recognition is because I saw that on the monument out there, it gives reference to the fact that the Racine Committee back in 1992 went ahead and approved and obviously funded the costs associated with that monument, which talked about for all people. When you read the inscription on it, it says for all people. So my sense was I was trying to come back to what is it we're trying to accomplish by the change? And the dollars and cents piece, to be honest, doesn't appear to be a big number. All right, with all due respect to the business that's there, in the long run, over a period of time, that would probably be offset. But this comes down then to a belief that we're changing for change's sake right now. Although it's passionate and it's emotional for a lot of people, it's fully respected. However, back to the comments about today, we're looking to change it to one thing, and it is not unusual, whether we say it won't happen or not. It is not unusual where all of a sudden now it comes up in another year, 3, 5, 10 years where something else is being changed. So my sense was after all of my research, I definitely came back feeling that I'm not sure I see where it would be appropriate to make the change at this point. With no disrespect meant to all of the people who have presented an extremely compelling belief behind it, I certainly felt compelled to at least share my transparent thoughts on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comment or discussion? Yes, Rousey.
Thank you, Chairman. Caution everyone, if you have any short comments, you might want to get them in now. I have a statement I'd like to read. All right. First, I'm going to address a few things that I've been taking notes on. I find it interesting that there's not a lot of support from the Potawatomi Nation, and there's a different sovereign nation that's supporting the Oneida Nation is supporting Potawatomi's effort, but Potawatomi didn't actually produce a letter in support of this. The Oneida letter is from the last attempt at doing the same action. And we talked about, consistency in the street naming. Everyone here and everyone in the audience is, I'm sure, familiar with when you cross certain municipal boundaries is that a street name will change. That's nothing foreign. You see that a lot. I think it's just maybe somewhat odd that in such a short distance you're seeing that, but different municipalities have the rights to name their streets what they want, and that's what we're seeing here. The one thing I really wanted to talk about is the one thing that's been completely omitted tonight is the Italian community in Racine, which is a great community. I mean, everyone knows about it. I'm sure you've been at some of the restaurants from the major families in the area. And there's a lot of pride for Christopher Columbus and what he means to the Italian American community. And that's my statement I'm going to read tonight as to what Christopher Columbus means to that community. On March 14th, 1891, a mob of thousands stormed the Orleans Parish Prison in New Orleans and murdered 11 Italian immigrants. The victims, fruit peddlers, a cobbler, a tinsmith, and others, have been charged in connection with the October 1890 murder of Police Chief David Hennessy. The day before the lynching, 6 of the defendants were acquitted by jury and 3 received mistrials. No guilty verdicts were returned. The mob killed them anyway. This is widely documented as the largest single mass lynching in American history by number of victims killed at one time and place. The victims were targeted primarily because of their Italian ethnicity, not because of established criminal culpability. After Hennessy's death, New Orleans Mayor Joseph Shakespeare ordered police to arrest any Italians found in the street. Hundreds were rounded up in a dragnet. Local newspapers fueled the hostility, and the Daily Picayune denouncing Italian immigrants as paupers and criminals, and worse language, which I can't repeat here. The mob that carried out the killings was not a fringe element. It included some of the city's most prominent citizens, future mayors and governors among them. A grand jury was convened afterward, but the presiding judge was a personal friend of several mob participants. No one was ever charged or prosecuted for the murders. Theodore Roosevelt wrote that the victims got what they deserved. Prominent newspapers, including the Boston Globe, ran approving headlines. The killings triggered an international diplomatic crisis. Italy formally protested, recalled its ambassador from Washington, and severed diplomatic relations with the United States. Members of the Italian parliament introduced a resolution discussing retaliatory naval action against the American eastern seaboard. The U.S. reciprocated by withdrawing its legation from Rome. The crisis persisted for over a year. President Benjamin Harrison eventually addressed the lynchings in a message to Congress, calling them a most deplorable and discreditable incident, an offense against law and humanity. In his instruction, the U.S. government paid a $25,000 indemnity, which is approximately $760,000 in today's money, to the families of 3 victims who held Italian citizenship. In 1892, 1 year after the lynchings and coinciding with the 400th anniversary of Columbus's first voyage, President Harrison issued a proclamation calling for a National Columbus Day of observance. Congress passed a joint resolution authorizing the president to designate Friday, October 21st, 1892, as a general holiday. Encyclopedia Britannica, if you remember that one, draws the connection directly. The U.S. government paid $25,000 in reparations to the families of the murdered men and issued a proclamation recognizing Columbus Day as a national celebration in 1892. The proclamation served as a dual purpose. It was a conciliatory gesture towards Italy to restore diplomatic goodwill, and it was a public signal to Italian Americans who were increasingly visible as a community that the federal government recognized them as legitimate participants in American public life. Harrison also was facing a difficult reelection campaign in 1892 and needed to rebuild support among Italian American voters, which the lynchings had severely damaged. Columbus Day did not arise as hero worship. It arose because Italian immigrants in the late 19th century faced systematic nativist hostility, structural discrimination, and lethal mob violence. They needed a public civic symbol that could assert their legitimacy in a country that frequently treated them as racially suspect, culturally inferior, and disposable. Columbus, an Italian-born navigator already embedded in American civic imagery through the national personification of Columbia, offered exactly that. He allowed Italian Americans to connect their immigrant identity to the American founding narrative. The Knights of Columbus and other Italian American civic organizations spent decades advocating for the holiday's institutionalization. In 1934, Congress authorized President Franklin Roosevelt to proclaim October 12th as a Columbus Day annually. In 1968, Lyndon Johnson signed legislation making it a federal holiday effective in 71. That advocacy was not about glorifying exploration. It was about securing a permanent civic marker that said Italian Americans belong in this country's public life. The broader pattern of the next part is about the broader pattern of Italian persecution. And don't worry, we're getting towards the end. The 1891 lynchings were not an isolated event. Italian Americans were the second largest ethnic group to be lynched in the United States. Anti-Italian discrimination was reinforced by the KKK, which added Italian immigrants to its list of targeted groups. Nativist organizations pushed for immigration restrictions specifically aimed at Southern and Eastern Europeans. The word mafia entered the American vocabulary through the 1891 crisis and was weaponized for decades afterwards to justify discrimination against all Italian Americans, regardless of any individual's conduct. During World War II, more than 1,800 Italian Americans were interned as enemy aliens, and over 600,000 were subject to restrictions nationwide. Their property seized, their movements curtailed, their loyalties questioned. Their only offense was Italian ancestry. On Columbus Day in 1942, President Roosevelt announced the removal of the enemy alien designation. That was only in 1942 for Italian Americans, further cementing the holiday's role as a vehicle for restoring civic dignity for a persecuted community. Removing Columbus's name from a public road is not a neutral act of updating a street sign. For many Italians, it registers as the removal of one of the few civic markers that recognize their community's struggle for acceptance in this country, a struggle rooted in the largest mass lynching in U.S. history, decades of discrimination, and wartime internment. This board is not being asked to evaluate Christopher Columbus's 15th century conduct. That is a matter for historians and educators. This board is being asked whether Racine County should erase a civic marker that, in the American context, has functioned as a symbol of immigrant inclusion, one that arose directly from anti-Italian violence and an international diplomatic crisis. If the board wishes to honor indigenous heritage along the causeway, it can do so through additive measures, interpretive signage, educational programming, companion recognition, or dedicated public art. History is better served by adding context than by subtracting identity. Removal does not create an understanding. It creates erasure and division, and it disproportionately affects the Italian American community at a moment when their civic pressure is once again being questioned. I respectfully ask that this committee vote to retain the Christopher Columbus Causeway name. Thank you.
Any other comment or discussion on this motion? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. And thank you for the public for being here this evening. My name is Don Trottier. I'm a county board member and I'm chairman of the finance committee for the past 8 years. Prior to taking on this task of county board supervisor, my full-time job was a banker. And for 40 years, I dealt with the general public, from salaried individuals to hourly individuals to self-employed individuals, to bar owners, to restaurant employees, you name it. And being self-employed is so difficult, not that the others aren't, but when you put a business together and a business plan together, you hope it works with very few disruptions. I find that renaming this road, this causeway, and not retaining the name of Christopher Columbus will create hardship, stress, and social anxiety for the business owners of Reef Point Marina, as well as our new marina going up, which is being handled by M3, a third party that watches that takes care of that business. So as a county board member, I am not in favor of changing the name. Granted, I do not have a vote on this, but I wanted to voice my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion?
I move to adopt this resolution for the name change.
Okay. So it has been motioned and it has been seconded. As far as my brief commentary, there is this notion of this being sovereign or not. I guess we can debate that or not, but what I do know that this was native land at one point in time. And just like so many other Native Americans, there was efforts to remove them. But if we're going to talk about sovereignty, I would just mention that this was Native America's native land. Secondly, I think it's kind of, besides point about speculate about offense or future offense, I think that's neither here and there. I don't think that's what's most pertinent relevant here. I think what we're looking at again is looking at the city of the state and the county of Racine, looking at the rich cultural heritage, um, Native Americans who were here long before anyone else was, for that matter, and acknowledging um, the Native American presence here by the change of the street, the causeway to Kippy Causeway. I think it would be a great celebration, acknowledgement of that rich history and tradition. I do believe there's something to be said about uh, some confusion with multiple names, and I believe the change to Kippy Causeway would address that. I also am of the opinion that any associated cost of name change, for example, to the county, that's built into maintenance. I know that's sometimes brought up. I do believe that impact to business is minimal, though not to dismiss it. And there certainly can be ample time to make whatever changes or adjustments that would be necessary. Um, but I don't believe that is withstanding in terms of, um, again, honoring and celebrating Racine's rich um, historical heritage of our Native American presence out here. Um, Also, I would say that the county itself has had a record of celebrating Racine's heritage, such as underground uh, railway landmark. Um, and from that standpoint, this name change, I believe, would be a continuation of this rich tradition. From the standpoint of how to understand the county and the work that we do, and those are just my comments. I wholeheartedly uh, approve and agree with this resolution to be passed on from the committee to the full board for consideration. Yes. King.
I promise to be quick about this because I don't want to take up any more of people's times, but I just would like to add, while Supervisor Rossi's argument about the civic representation Italian Americans may receive through Christopher Columbus is important, I don't want to come against Italian Americans. Largely speaking, the acts that Supervisor Rossi described in his initial introduction, the New Orleans lynching, largely happened in a period of time where there was a very fierce but also brief discrimination against Italian Americans, comparatively speaking to Native Americans. When I'd like to bring up that just a few decades after this lynching occurred, and already when Christopher Columbus Day became president, Native Americans only received civil rights in 1924 under the Hoover administration. Frankly, I feel that this argument that Italian Americans receive some sort of outdo representation through Christopher Columbus antiquated. And the reason I say this is because, according to the Pew Research Center, Italian Americans overwhelmingly do not face the same level of discrimination that Native Americans do, at least on the same level. I'm not saying that Italian American discrimination doesn't exist, but I'm saying we have moved far past the days of the 1890s and the days of New Orleans. Rather, I find this argument to be one that does not hold water compared to the millennium of struggle Native Americans and indigenous peoples have had to fight and face for simple representation. I do not agree with the notion that removal is necessarily always the best option. Do not get me wrong in that matter. But I find this not to be a removal of Italian American heritage, but rather the removal of a symbol which, to this day, many Native Americans and indigenous people find offensive, find cruel. It is not a matter of Christopher Columbus being the Italian American icon. What Christopher Columbus in this case represents, when put against the Potawatomi Firekeeper, is a legacy of colonialism versus tradition. And as the supervisor mentioned, Racine County has a long tradition too of maintaining these ties to our ancestral ties, the people who came before us. So I do not wish to come out and say that Italian Americans do not deserve representation, but rather this is not us asking to get rid of Christopher Columbus Day. This is not us asking to remove, the legacy of New Orleans and the lynchings. Rather, this is us asking to rename one street after one name, the Kipikawe, a name which is far older than the very notion of Christopher Columbus. Thank you.
Yes, Supervisor.
I guess kind of quick question. If I was kind of talked a lot about finance lately and everything in the meetings, has anybody offered to help pay for this? Or is anybody putting their money where their mouth is, I guess, if this is this important to this people, because I got the feeling tonight that it's not going to end with the street. There was some talk about the monument of Christopher Columbus. So offhand, Raleigh, what would it, if this goes one step further, what's it going to cost to remove that monument if that's where they go and we give them momentum here to do this?
I don't know, probably a couple $1,000 to remove the monument. It's a big stone. It's just basically us moving it, removing it, and I would say probably put it somewhere else. I would assume we wouldn't destroy it.
What would the cost of the road then be?
Probably $1,000.
But nobody's come forward sponsoring it financially.
No.
Yeah, I do believe we're, again, speculating as in terms of some other matters as opposed to just looking at this current resolution that we're considering. But yes.
Yeah, I'll just be real brief. This name change solves nothing. We have spent now, I don't know, a good portion of this evening talking about this issue, important to some on both sides. I wish we had the same amount of fire and energy when it came time to addressing our budgetary concerns, our shortfalls in road funding, police, fire, take your pick of whatever other issue. Nobody shows up for that. You show up for emotions and heartstrings. That's when you show up. Very disappointing. Call the question.
So it has been motioned and seconded. Any other comments, conversation, statements to be made? I would like to request roll call vote. I'd like to make a motion for a roll call vote. I make a motion. I call for it. Wait, just a minute. So roll call vote is not being called, and to the effect of, or we can just go right down the line.
I'm going to vote no. I'm not in favor of the name change.
No.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No.
Motion fails. Moving on to item number 10, review, discussion, and possible recommendation on reports number, review, discussion, and possible recommendation on report number 2025-71 by the County Executive Reportment of Kuisha Kaur and Frank Sturtevant as full members of the Racine County Board Golf Course Improvement Committee.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the term of two members of the Golf Course Improvement Committee are set to expire on March 31st, 2026. Both members have been active and valuable members of that committee and have expressed interest to continuing to serve.
Can I point of order? This was brought up at the county board meeting already.
It was referred to you guys and then it comes back.
It comes back here and then it'll go back again to the county board.
I would make a motion that this be approved as presented.
So this has been motioned and seconded. I'm going to go ahead. Any other?
No. Oh,
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion has been approved. Youth and governance, all in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? No one is opposed. All right, item 11, miscellaneous public works business. Any referrals?
Yeah, there are 4 referrals. Racine County Facilities Management Notable Project Status Report for the month of December 2025 that is in your packet. Racine County's Facilities Management Nodal Project Status Report for the month of January 2026, also in your packets. There's a letter from F3 Marina regarding the concerns proposing the remaining of Christopher Columbus Causeway from Reef Point Marina that is also inside those packets that you got printed out. And then Racine County Facilities Management Nodal Project Status Report for the month of February 2026. So there's 3 of them inside there as requested.
Second.
All right, it's been received and filed. It's been motioned and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? So it is. Next meeting of the PW of the Public Works Committee is Thursday, April 9th, 2026 at 5 p.m. If warranted, and get a motion to adjourn. All right, approved.